never imagined a simple text message could make my hands shake like that. But there it was, glowing on my phone screen like a slap to the face. You won't be joining us on the family cruise. My wife would prefer to keep it just family. It came from my son. My only child. The same son I had just given a fully paid house to, not rented, not loaned, given. A home I spent sleepless nights worrying about, saving every penny just to make sure he had something solid to build his life on. I told myself it was a gift of love, something to help his little family grow strong. But now? I wasn't family enough to go on a vacation. I stared at that message, my chest tight, my ears ringing, my fingers freezing. I typed out just one word, okay. That tiny word carried all of it, the heartbreak, the betrayal, the shock. But inside, my head was screaming. So I was good enough to buy your house, but not good enough to sit at your table? Not good enough to be seen with you on a boat for one lousy week? My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it. My breath came in short gasps. But on the outside? I stayed still, calm, like nothing had happened. Something inside me quietly snapped, that soft, forgiving part of me, the one that always let the little hurt slide, that always smiled and said, "It's okay." It died right then. Another message popped up. This time from Emily, my daughter-in-law. Polite, distant, cold. I hope you understand. It's just simpler for everyone this way. Simpler, I thought. Of course it's simpler, Emily. Simpler now that you have the house. Simpler now that you think you've locked in your future and tossed me aside. I set the phone down, my hands still shaking. But I didn't cry. Not anymore. Because in that moment, something new woke up inside me, a part of me that had been quiet for too long. The part that had been kind to a fault. The part that refused to be treated like I didn't matter. They thought I'd just accept it and stay silent. They were wrong. The silence in my home was unbearable after that. I sat in the kitchen, the same kitchen I used to love, but now it felt cold and unfamiliar. The morning sunlight crept across the floor, lighting up the chairs I'd picked out, the countertop I'd once polished with pride, the curtains I'd sewn myself. All of it was for them. For Matthew. For Emily. For the family I thought I was building. Now it just felt like a museum of mistakes. The walls were covered in happy photos, vacations I paid for, Disney when Matthew was little, Cancun when Emily joined the family. That Christmas cabin trip I fully funded, thinking, this is what love looks like. I remembered the housewarming. Last spring. The house I gave them, no strings attached. No mortgage. No debt. Just love. Emily had held my hands, her eyes watery. "Oh, Olivia, you didn't have to. We're so grateful. You'll always have a room here, you know that." And I believed her. Because mothers believe. I remembered staying up late. Repainting their bedroom myself, using a soft lavender color because Emily said it helped her sleep. I bought furniture online, built it alone in my garage. I picked every throw blanket, every lamp, every little thing with care. I kept busy, told myself their distance was nothing, just work stress, just growing pains. But now I saw it clearly. I had been useful. A helper. A wallet. And now that they had what they needed, they didn't see me anymore, not as a person. Just as something they could take from. And once I had nothing left to give, they didn't need me at all. The next morning, I couldn't take the quiet anymore. I called Martha. She showed up an hour later, like she always did, no questions. No judgment. That's what real friends do. They show up. She walked in and looked right at me. Saw everything on my face before I said a word. "Tell me," she said, gently setting her purse on the table. I handed her the phone. Let her read it for herself. Her jaw clenched as she read. She didn't speak right away. Just shook her head, like she already knew this was coming. Finally, she looked at me and said, "They've been planning this, Liv." Her words hit me hard. My voice came out soft, smaller than I expected. I thought maybe it was just Emily, that she got into his head. "But Matthew's not like this," I said, trying to believe my own words. Martha didn't argue. She just pressed her lips into a thin, firm line and reached across the table, placing her hand over mine. Her grip was steady, strong, like she was holding me up. "Liv," she said gently, "you raised a good boy. But you also raised a boy who never had to struggle. You were always there to fix things for him. Always cleaning up the mess, always saving the day." She looked me in the eyes. "And Emily?" She saw that. She saw how easy it would be to shape him into what she wanted. "And you made yourself small for them. And now they act like that's where you belong." Her words stung deep, because they were true. I had spent years bending over backward. For them. Canceling vacations to watch their dog. Dipping into my savings to pay off their student loans. Showing up every time Emily needed help decluttering. Always useful. Always available. Always saying yes. You need to protect yourself now, Martha said, her voice quieter this time. Seriously, Liv. Before they try to take even more. I blinked at her. Take more? Martha, they already have everything. Her eyes narrowed. Have you checked your accounts lately? Are you still listed on the house title? Your investments? Olivia, you're still trusting them. A knot twisted tight in my stomach. My heart started racing. I hadn't checked. Not once. Why would I? They were my family. I let Emily handle most of the online stuff, I said, my voice barely a whisper. She told me it was easier for taxes. Less hassle for me. Martha leaned back in her chair and let out a sharp sigh. Her brow furrowed deep. Liv, you have to log in today. If anything looks off, we go straight to a lawyer. No waiting. A lump rose in my throat. My hands trembled, not from fear. This time, but from something colder. Sharper. It hit me all at once, my trust had been turned against me. I wasn't just a naive, soft-hearted mom. I was someone they counted on to stay quiet. Someone they thought would never push back. Someone they could use and forget. But as Martha looked at me, waiting for a response, I felt something shift inside. A small spark, something fierce that had been buried under years of being overlooked. I sat up straighter. My voice came out steady, strong for the first time in days. All right. We start today. Martha gave a tight nod. Good. Because you're not done yet, Liv. And they have no idea what's coming. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that text message again, those cold, clipped words from Matthew. I saw Emily's fake smile. I heard Martha's voice over and over, you need to protect yourself now. By 2:17 a.m., I gave up on sleep. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my ears. I pulled my laptop onto the table. For years, Emily had taken over the finances. You shouldn't have to stress about all this in your retirement. She'd say in that sweet, sugary voice. I wanted to believe she was just being helpful. That she really cared. But now, my fingers hovered over the login screen, and I didn't feel comfort. I felt a deep, uneasy chill. I typed in my info. The account dashboard came up like usual. At first, everything looked fine. But that was the trick, everything looked fine. Because I had never known to look closer. Slowly, I started combing through the transaction history. One account at a time. Checking. Savings. Retirement. Investments. Most things seemed normal, grocery runs, electric bills, small donations. But the further I scrolled, the more the dread built up. There were transfers. Not huge ones, just small amounts here and there. Labeled as home expenses, property repairs, or emergencies. But I hadn't approved any repairs. I hadn't heard of any emergencies. I followed the trail. Each transfer was going to a card, one that wasn't mine. A secondary user account. I clicked again. And there it was. Emily's name. My stomach dropped. She had linked her card to my accounts. Quietly. Probably months ago. Maybe even longer. Draining my money little by little without a word. This wasn't about a cruise. It wasn't about hurt feelings. This was theft. And Matthew? Was he blind to it? Or did he just not care, as long as the money kept coming? A slow wave of something icy moved through me. Not rage. Not yet. Something calmer. More dangerous. I closed the laptop gently and leaned back in my chair. The soft light in the kitchen caught the edges of the photos still hanging on my walls, smiling. Faces, fake memories, happy lies. Photos I once loved. Photos that now. The pictures on the wall didn't feel like memories anymore. They felt like proof of how badly I'd been fooled. Like I had walked right into a trap and smiled the whole way in. They didn't love me. They loved what I could give them. My throat felt tight, but still no tears came. Instead, I sat there in the quiet and whispered to the empty room, you gambled with my kindness, Emily. You gambled with my trust. I used to tell myself that staying quiet didn't mean I was weak. But now I knew the truth, silence can cut, too. They thought I'd stay small forever. They thought I wouldn't fight back. They were wrong. By morning, all the confusion was gone. I wasn't panicking anymore. The fog had lifted, and what was left was sharp, cold focus. I called my financial advisor first thing. I didn't want to set off any alarms yet, so I acted like it was just a casual check-in. Of course. Mrs. Gardner, Mr. Whitaker said cheerfully. He'd handled my portfolio for years. What can I help you with today? My son and daughter-in-law have been helping with some of my household stuff, I said, keeping my voice calm, but I'd like to make sure everything is still set up the way we originally agreed. He pulled up my files while I waited. My hands trembled under the desk, but I kept breathing slow and steady. He said after a moment. Well, everything appears stable, though I do see some recent activity. His voice changed slightly. It looks like there have been Several fund transfers, mostly for home renovations. I swallowed hard. Renovations? Yes, and some fairly large ones. A few amounts marked as design upgrades and contractor prepayments. I tightened my grip on the phone. And who approved these transfers? There was a pause. Well, technically, you did. Or rather, your authorized representative did. My stomach dropped. Which representative? He hesitated. It appears your secondary authorized user, Mrs. Emily Gardner, processed them. She has full access under the durable power of attorney you signed last spring. I closed my eyes. I remembered that day. Emily had insisted on updating the paperwork, just in case of an emergency, she'd said. She even brought the notary herself, smiling sweetly the whole time. Of course she did. Thank you, Mr. Whitaker, I said quietly. From now on, could you flag any future transactions for my personal approval before they go through? I've decided to be a bit more involved. He agreed right away. After I hung up, I just sat there, staring into the silence. There was no more doubt. Emily wasn't helping me, she was setting things up. She and Matthew were preparing to quietly drain everything I'd built, treating my retirement like it was already theirs. I looked over at the windowsill where my late husband's locket sat, the one he gave me on our 30th anniversary. He would have seen this coming. He always warned me to be cautious. But I wanted so badly to believe in family. For years, I had made myself small to avoid conflict. But I'd finally learned, love without respect is a prison. And that night, I found the key. Across the room, I looked at the empty shelf where a photo of Matthew and Emily's housewarming used to sit. I took it down 2 nights ago. The shelf looked better empty, and honestly, so did I. They had bet on me staying quiet. They would regret that. That afternoon, I took a walk to the park. I needed air. I needed space, somewhere that wasn't filled with things I bought for them, or haunted by memories of people who only saw me as useful. The old oak tree was still there, the one where Richard, my husband, used to sit every Sunday with the newspaper while I fed the ducks. He called it our little corner of calm. I sat on the bench beneath its branches, and the breeze brushed over my face, carrying away some of the heaviness that had been pressing down on me for so long. I didn't speak at first. I just breathed. Just listened. And then, as softly as if he were still sitting next to me, I whispered. You would have seen it, Richard. You would have warned me. I reached for the locket and ran my fingers over the engraved date on the back. The day we paid off our first home. The day we thought we were building something solid for our family. Back when Matthew was just our bright-eyed little boy, dreaming about treehouses and rocket ships. No more schemes, just truth. I bit my lip to stop it from trembling. I could feel the sting behind my eyes, but I didn't want to cry. Not anymore. I'd cried enough already, and those tears hadn't changed a thing. The next morning, I was waiting outside my lawyer's office before it even opened. Mr. Dalton had handled my paperwork for years. He helped me with my will, and with buying the house for Matthew and Emily. He was even the one who drafted the documents Emily had me sign back when she said she needed more freedom to manage our household money. I trusted her back then. I trusted all of them. But not anymore. Mr. Dalton greeted me with a smile, but I saw the concern in his eyes. Olivia? You're here early. Is everything okay? I sat down and folded my hands in my lap, keeping my voice steady. I want to take back the house. The one I put in Matthew and Emily's names. His eyebrows rose slightly. You mean, reverse the gift? Yes, I said. Exactly. I want that undone. And I want all my finances protected. No one else should have access. I want a full record of every single thing they've done using my accounts. He paused, not because he disagreed, but because he understood what this meant. Olivia, this might cause tension. I looked him straight in the eye. They've already caused tension. I just didn't want to see it. He nodded. All right, we'll take care of it. Then I leaned in a little closer. One more thing. I want a full report, every withdrawal, every signature, every change Emily's made. I want the whole picture. He didn't try to hide the respect on his face. We'll need that evidence if this turns into a legal fight. It will turn into one, I said, calm as ever. Let's not pretend it won't. He jotted down a few quick notes. You might want to hire a private investigator. I raised a brow. You think it's that serious? His voice was gentle, but firm. Emily isn't just pulling strings. She's setting herself up to take over everything. You've got real assets, Olivia. If she's already digging into your accounts, she's probably trying to create a paper trail that makes her look like the one in charge. We need to build a counter trail, evidence they can't twist. The thought made my stomach churn. But it wasn't fear anymore, it was focus. Do it, I said. Hire whoever you trust. He nodded. We'll handle the legal work. The investigator can handle the rest. That was the moment everything started moving. I walked out of his office with a clearer head. The problem wasn't solved yet, far from it, but for the first time, I wasn't just reacting. I wasn't waiting around for the next blow. I was finally doing something about it. As I slid into my car, I let out a dry, bitter smile. They always like things quiet. Well, they get quiet, my kind of quiet. The kind that watches, plans, and strikes when no one's looking. The very next morning, something was slipped under my door. I spotted it the second I walked into the kitchen. A plain white envelope. The kind Emily always used for her little, helpful documents. On top was a sticky note, her handwriting neat and cheerful. Just sign whenever you're ready, Mom. It'll make things easier while we're away. I froze. So they'd already left, off on some fancy cruise, probably lounging on a deck somewhere, sipping drinks with little umbrellas, while their game continued back here. With careful fingers, I opened the envelope. Inside was a thick stack of paperwork. It all looked clean and professional, harmless at first glance. Little updates, small changes, typical estate stuff. Emily was always good at making control. Looked like kindness. But as I read on, my stomach sank. Hidden deep in the fine print was the truth, a permanent, irreversible power of attorney. If I signed it, Emily would control everything, my money, my house, my medical care, my entire life. I stood there, hands shaking, not from fear, but from the cold shock of it all. They weren't planning to wait until I was gone. They were ready to take over now. To erase me gently, with paperwork. Legally. Cleanly. Without even needing to get their hands dirty. And Matthew, my son. Was he really clueless? Or was he just pretending not to notice what she was doing? It didn't matter anymore whether Matthew was truly blind to what Emily was doing, or if he was just pretending not to see. Either way, the truth hit just as hard. They weren't my family now. Not really. They were people I used to know, wearing my son's smile and using my daughter-in-law's voice, acting like family while trying to take everything from me. I gently slid the unsigned documents back into the envelope, closed it, and placed it on the kitchen counter like it was nothing special. Let them believe I hadn't noticed. Let them think I was still the same trusting woman who always said yes, who always smiled and signed without question. But that woman? She was gone. The private investigator was coming later that day. My lawyer was already working on freezing every shared account and undoing the house transfer. And now, I had something solid, clear proof in black and white of exactly what they were trying to do. I sat at the kitchen table, letting the morning sunlight warm my face. They thought they were still running this game. But they forgot something important. Being quiet doesn't mean being weak. As I tucked those papers back into the envelope, I felt something shift deep inside me. It was strange, really. I wasn't panicking. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was focused, laser-focused, and more sure of myself than I'd been in years. They thought they could pull this while sipping cocktails on a cruise, thinking I'd sit here confused, too overwhelmed by legal words to fight back. They thought I'd feel grateful to be included in the plan to erase myself. They thought wrong. By noon, I was sitting in Mr. Dalton's office again. This time, there were no polite greetings. He took one look at me and simply nodded, already picking up on the seriousness in my face. They tried to slide this under my door while they're out of town, I said, placing the envelope on his desk. He opened it slowly and read through the pages. His brow furrowed as he took in the details. They're getting bold, he said at last. This isn't just sneaky, it's dangerous. If you'd signed this, Olivia, they could have sold your home, emptied your accounts, even put you in a care facility of their choosing. And no one would have been able to stop them. He looked up, expecting me to be rattled. But I wasn't. I met his gaze calmly. Then let's move faster. A small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. I could see the respect in his eyes. We're already ahead, he said. The paperwork to take the house back is almost done. The account freezes are in motion. And the investigator started digging into their financial activity the moment you gave the go-ahead. He tapped the power of attorney document. But after seeing this? We're going full throttle. I leaned in closer. Lock down everything. Not a single dollar moves without me. No more surprises. He nodded. We're also writing a clause for your will. If they try any legal tricks later, we'll have a complete timeline to prove how they manipulated things. It'll hold up in court. I sat back in the chair, my breathing steady. For the first time in a long while, my hands weren't shaking. My shoulders weren't tight. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was building a wall they couldn't see, one they'd crash into when they least expected it. When I got home that afternoon, the house felt different. It wasn't the rooms that had changed, it was me. I walked through each space with new eyes. This place wasn't full of warm memories anymore. It was full of evidence, proof of my kindness and their greed. I stopped at the empty shelf again. The one where our old housewarming photo used to sit. That fake, smiling picture. I opened the drawer and pulled it out one last time, looking at their grinning faces. You thought I was here to serve you, I whispered to the frame, my thumb hovering over Matthew's face. You thought I'd never say no. Then I flipped the photo over and pushed it deep into the drawer, where the light wouldn't touch it. 2 days later, my phone rang. I knew the number right away. It was the private investigator. I answered before the first ring finished. Mrs. Gardner, he said. His voice was calm, but I could feel the weight in his words. You'll want to hear this. Without thinking, I closed the curtains. Some old instinct kicking in. Tell me. He didn't waste a second. Your daughter-in-law listed the property as collateral for a second mortgage. She's already started the pre-approval process with a private lender. The paperwork went in last week. I froze. They were already borrowing against my house. The one I had given them in good faith. They acted like it was theirs now, free to use, free to gamble with. Like I didn't matter. Did she tell them how she got the property? I asked. She called it a clean family transfer, he said, flat and serious. No mention of the power of attorney trick. No mention of the money moving around behind your back. The lender has no idea. The lender had been impressed by what Emily called their generous family support. I bit down hard on the inside of my cheek to stop my hands from shaking. This wasn't just about taking my money anymore, they were gambling with it. They were stacking debt on top of my kindness. Building risk on top of trust one had freely given. And not once did they ask me. Not once did they get my permission. If I hadn't started this process when I did, I might have walked into this house one day to find it sold, my bank accounts empty, and my future gone. And legally? They would have walked away clean. Do they know you're onto them? I asked. The investigator. No, ma'am. Far as they know, you're still home, quiet, trusting, completely in the dark. I let out a slow, steady breath. Good. Let's keep it that way. We hung up. I sat in the stillness of my living room, the soft hum of the fridge the only sound. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was theft. Ongoing, calculated theft. But strangely, I didn't feel panicked. I wasn't even angry. What I felt was sharp and clear, like standing on solid ground after being lost in fog. They weren't careful because they didn't think they had to be. They thought I'd stay quiet. That I was still the mom who'd do anything to keep the peace. But they hadn't realized something simple yet powerful. When a woman like me finally says no, it's already too late for the other side. I stood up, smoothed the front of my blouse, and looked out at the house I had bought for them. The house they were so eager to use as their own personal ATM. And in that quiet moment, I smiled. You gambled with my gift, Emily, I whispered. Now I'm going to gamble with your future. That night, I didn't bother turning on the lights. I sat by the window in silence, watching the street lamps throw long shadows over the sidewalk. The world outside kept moving, gentle and unaware. But inside this house, everything had changed. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't scared. I wasn't confused. I was thinking, clearly and carefully. They thought I'd break under the weight of their betrayal. They thought those sugary smiles and, "We're just trying to help you, Mom," routines would keep me soft and quiet. But they built their little empire on my trust, and now I'd stopped holding it up for them. A neighbor's car pulled into their driveway, headlights sweeping briefly across the mantel, illuminating the empty space where that fake family photo used to sit. It looked better that way. Clean. Honest. They gambled with my gift, I said again, softly, just for me. Now I'm gambling with their future. It felt good to say it out loud. For years, I swallowed my discomfort, told myself that love meant putting up with things. That being needed was the same as being valued. But I was wrong. They didn't love me. They loved what I gave them. My money. My time. My quiet agreement. And once they stopped needing me, the woman, the mother, they didn't think twice about cutting me out. Smiling while they did it. But now they were too far out on that limb. I didn't even need to push. I just had to stop holding the branch steady. I closed my eyes and pictured Emily's face, the fake concern, the sweet voice she used like sugar to coat every lie. You're like a second mother to me, Olivia. What a joke. No one tries to erase their own mother. No one hides power of attorney papers under stacks of fake estate forms unless they've been planning it for a long time. I opened my eyes and leaned back in my chair, feeling my spine straighten. They counted on my silence. They never expected it to be my weapon. I stared out the window a little longer, cool air pressing against the glass. It was strange, after everything, I didn't feel broken. I felt powerful. The next few days passed like clockwork. No emotion. No second guessing. Just one clean, deliberate step after another. Every morning, I sat in Dalton's office, him on one side, the investigator on the other. We didn't waste time. We didn't even need to talk much. Just worked. Piece by piece, gathering facts, building the truth. Every transaction Emily touched was pulled up and examined. Every withdrawal traced. Every lie revealed in neat lines and numbers. And the deeper we dug, the worse it got. Emily hadn't just linked her personal credit card to my account. She'd used my retirement fund, money I'd saved for decades, to pay off her private debt. She had opened investment accounts under her maiden name and funneled money into them, hiding the trail behind unfamiliar logins and unfamiliar emails. And she didn't stop there. She even used my name to get pre-approved for that second mortgage on the house I had given her. All the while, she sat at my table, called me Mom, smiled at me like nothing was wrong. Dalton slid another printed statement across the desk. The private investigator leaned over the table, tapping one of the documents. This whole pattern, it's going to speak loud and clear in court, if it ever comes to that, he said. And the timing, it's too perfect. That cruise? The ideal distraction. While they were off relaxing, they slipped these final papers under your door. They wanted you powerless before you even knew what was happening. I nodded, letting the truth settle in. But it didn't weigh me down anymore. It was like the burden had shifted off my shoulders. It's just greed, I said quietly. Greed disguised as concern. They didn't want me gone. They wanted control. Dalton looked straight at me. And they would have had it, Olivia. Completely. Most people sign those documents without even reading the fine print. But I didn't sign, I said. My voice was calm, steady. No, he agreed. You didn't. And now they've left a trail long enough to trip over themselves. We stayed late that night, working through every last page. By the time I walked outside, the sky was dark again. But I wasn't tired. I wasn't afraid. I felt something even better, momentum. When I got home, I moved through the house with a new kind of focus. I noticed everything. The drapes Emily had picked out. The expensive light fixtures she just had to have. The marble countertops she insisted on upgrading. The soft close cabinets she claimed made the kitchen feel more elegant. All of it, mine again. They had built their fantasy on the belief that I'd never speak up. That I was too old, too gentle, too eager to hold on to whatever scraps of affection they tossed my way. But they forgot who built this house. I ran my fingers along the kitchen counter, slowly, thoughtfully. You tried to erase me while I was still breathing, I whispered. Now I'm erasing you while you're still pretending to smile. Tomorrow everything would be official. The house would be mine again. Their access to my money would be cut off. Every last loophole they counted on would be closed. And by the time their cruise ship pulled back into port, the world they thought they owned would already be gone. They wouldn't even know it until they tried to walk back into it. I sat down in front of the stack of documents. Everything was ready. The house reversal. The account protections. The full removal of Emily's access. Every trap they set for me had now become evidence against them. And it was all laid out in front of me, waiting for one final thing, my signature. Dalton stood at the far end of the table, quiet. The notary sat nearby, pen in hand, waiting. I picked up the pen and paused, not because I had any doubts, but because I knew what this moment meant. This wasn't just paperwork. It was years of loyalty. Years of giving without asking anything back. Years of biting my tongue and holding my breath. All of it was being rewritten now, in my own handwriting, one bold line at a time. The notary gave me a small, patient look. I didn't hesitate. My hand didn't shake as I signed the first page. Then the second. Then the third. With each stroke of the pen, I felt lighter. When I finished, Dalton gathered the papers and gave a quiet nod. It's done, Olivia. The house is legally yours again. Every account, every dollar, locked down. They can't touch a thing now. Not your money, not your property. Not even your utility bills. I nodded, feeling a calm I hadn't felt in years. And if they try to fight it? His voice sharpened, firm and unshaken. Then they'll expose themselves. We have it all, the investigator's full report, every unauthorized transaction, and proof they tried to sneak in that power of attorney while they were out of town. If they contest it, they lose even more. I let out a slow, deep breath. I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't waiting to be hurt. For the first time in a long time, my future was mine again. Outside, the evening air was cool and clear. I stood for a moment at the top of the courthouse steps, breathing it in. Their cruise ship would dock in 4 days. 4 days until they returned, expecting to step back into the life they controlled, into my life. They had no idea the locks had changed. They had no idea the house they tried to borrow against was already sold, quietly, legally, and permanently. The sale had gone through just hours before I signed the reversal. A clean buyer. All cash. Quick closing. The money already sitting. In a brand new account, one they couldn't see, couldn't touch, couldn't steal. I smiled as the wind picked up, brushing across my face like a quiet promise. They thought I was helpless. They thought my silence meant surrender. But they were wrong. I didn't need to yell. Sometimes, staying quiet says everything. That morning, before they even got back, I was already waiting. I parked a block away and watched from across the street as their car pulled in. They looked happy, fresh from their fancy cruise, tanned and relaxed, with no clue what was about to hit them. Emily got out first, sunglasses on her head, barking orders at Matthew while he pulled bags from the trunk. She was already talking about setting up a meeting to finalize a second mortgage. Matthew barely looked up, he was on his phone, like always. Then they noticed something. 2 cars they didn't recognize were in the driveway. Moving trucks. A young couple stood near the front door, smiling and chatting with a realtor. I started walking toward them slowly. Matthew saw me first. "Mom," he said, his voice shaking. Not just confused, scared. Emily narrowed her eyes. "What's going on? Who are these people?" The couple smiled, walked inside, and shut the door. Their door now. I stopped in front of them. "You don't need to manage anything for me anymore," I said. Emily's face turned red. "What does that mean?" Matthew's voice rose. "Mom, why are there people in our house?" I let the silence sit there for a moment. Then I said it, calm and clear. "Not your house. Not anymore." Emily snapped. She stepped forward, yelling in that sharp voice she always used when she didn't get her way. "You can't do this. We're refinancing. We have contracts." I didn't flinch. I pulled a thick folder from my bag and handed it to Matthew. "These are the only contracts that matter." His hands trembled as he flipped through the papers. I watched the color drain from his face. Inside were documents for the home sale. A full reversal of everything they tried to control, a private investigator's report, proof of what they'd done. Emily grabbed the folder, flipping through it fast. Her breath sped up. She was looking for a way out. "None of this will." "Hold up," she snapped. "We were helping you. You'll regret this when you calm down." I kept my voice steady. "Helping? You mean secretly draining my bank account, racking up debt on a home that wasn't yours, faking legal documents, and hoping I'd sign without reading while you were halfway across the world?" Her jaw clenched. Matthew looked at me, eyes wide. "Mom, we didn't mean," I raised my hand. "Just one word, stop." Quiet. Strong. Final. They didn't say anything else. And for the first time, I saw them for who they were. Not sad. Not sorry. Just scared. The kind of fear that shows when someone realizes the person they underestimated has been watching, and waiting. I let that moment hang between us. And then? I smiled. A real one. "You gambled with my trust," I said. "And you lost." Emily's face twisted. She looked like an animal cornered, still trying to fight even though it was already over. "You can't just take everything from us," she screamed. "We built this life. You can't destroy it over a few misunderstandings." I shook my head. "You didn't build this life," I said quietly. "You stole it. Little by little. Smile by smile. And you thought I wouldn't notice." Her voice cracked. "We're family. You can't just cut us off." All I could feel were the years behind me, the silence I kept to be a good mom, all the times I let them walk over me. But not this time. I pulled out a second folder. Thinner, but somehow heavier. "If you want to take this to court," I said, still calm, "this is what you'll be up against." She snatched it from my hand like she was grabbing a bone. Inside was everything. Every lie, every stolen dollar, every forged document. All of it. Clear as day. Fraud. Elder abuse. Forgery. Coercion. Everything she thought she'd get away with, right there in black and white. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid. Emily flipped through the pages faster and faster. Her face was pale, and I could hear her breathing get quicker. She was panicking now, realizing everything was falling apart. I lowered my voice, but made sure my words hit even harder. "If you try to take me to court, Emily," I said calmly, "this file becomes public. Every fake signature. Every shady transaction. Every time you tried to steal from your own mother-in-law, it'll all be out there for everyone to see." The words sank in like a heavy weight. Matthew spoke so softly it was almost a whisper. "Emily, what did you do?" She turned on him fast, her voice shaking. "Don't you dare blame me. You didn't complain when the money was flowing in." But Matthew didn't argue. He just stood there, silent, eyes wide, shoulders sinking. The truth was hitting him too. I watched them both closely. The two of them used to be a team, quiet, cruel, and united. But that bond was cracking right in front of me. I took a deep breath and said the last thing I needed to say: I was your mother, Matthew. And you made me your target. His lip trembled. He looked down. And just for a moment, I saw a flicker of the boy he used to be, the little kid who used to run to me when he fell, the one who needed me. But that boy was gone. And I was done grieving him. This isn't revenge, I said, my voice gentler. Now. This is protection. I'm finally protecting myself. Emily threw the folder on the ground and glared at me. You think you've won? You'll end up all alone. I didn't flinch. I just smiled. Alone, I said softly, is better than being used. Then I turned around and walked away. I didn't look back. The drive home was quiet. My car hummed gently as I passed tree-lined streets and familiar corners. By the time I reached my little apartment, the sun was setting. It wasn't fancy. But it was mine. All mine. As I locked the door behind me, I pictured them still standing there on the driveway, watching strangers move into the house they thought was theirs forever. Their house gone. Their lies uncovered. Their little world crashing down. My phone buzzed on the counter. A message from Matthew. Mom, please? Can we talk? This isn't what I wanted. Please. I stared at the screen. Funny how he called me Mom now, after all these months of barely speaking to me like I was even a person. A few minutes later, another text came through. I'm sorry. Emily pushed me. You know how she is. I never meant to hurt you. I could almost hear his voice, full of panic, trying to pretend he hadn't stood by while it all happened. Trying to rewrite the past now. That he had nothing left to gain. I hovered my thumb over the screen. But I didn't write back. Because I had finally learned something: you only miss me now that I've said no. I placed the phone face down on the table and walked toward the window. The breeze coming in carried the soft sound of kids playing outside, just happy laughter, floating on the evening air. Behind me, the apartment was quiet. Peaceful. No lies. No tricks. Just space. Just calm. They thought I couldn't survive without them. But the truth? I had been drowning under their weight for years. Everything I gave, every dollar, every sacrifice, was used against me. But now, without all of that, I felt light. Free. Let them be angry. Let them blame me. Let them fall apart. I had nothing left to give, and that was the most powerful feeling in the world. I whispered into the quiet, just for myself: being quiet doesn't mean I'm weak. And this time, I truly believed it.